I'm going to teach you how to play Yu Huang in 5 minutes or less. This is going to be a quick start guide going over what he wants in a build, his important skills to level up, and his bread and butter playstyle and how you'll be looking to play Yu Huang in the game itself. For a quick leveling guide, you'll want to max your 2 first, then your 1, then take extra points in your ultimate, and finally max your 3. Your passive gives you stacks of Dao every 8 seconds, and for the first time you hit an enemy within 3 seconds. At 6 stacks, you become attuned. While attuned, your auto attacks bounce to an additional target, and most of your abilities become empowered. Your first ability is a good poking tool, but can be tricky to hit. You deal damage and set fire to enemies in a small X shape wherever you target. If you are attuned, the explosion at the end of this ability also shreds the enemy's magical protections. Your second ability is your most important tool outside of your ultimate. It is your wave clear, it is your setup, and some of your best poke. You channel Dao, gaining 1 stack every half a second while you channel, up to a maximum of 6 stacks over 3 seconds. At any point while channeling, you can release the ability, dealing damage and slowing in a line, which thereafter, after a brief pause, explodes, dealing extra damage and rooting enemies in that area. Your third ability is your escape. It is a self-banish, meaning you basically take yourself out of the game, avoiding any abilities happening to you below. Although you will still take damage from existing effects on you, like Saket's ultimate poison, for example. You float for a while, moving around, eventually landing and dealing damage beneath you, and if you are attuned, you knock enemies back. Your ultimate ability is some of the best damage and CC in a single ultimate that the game has to offer. You summon a pair of floating dragon heads, one next to you and one where you target. They wait there for 3 seconds or until you command the dragons to charge at a target location between the heads. As they charge, they damage and push enemies towards the point you selected, then exploding for more damage when they clash. If you are attuned, the width of these dragons is larger, making it easier to land. At the time of making this guide, a typical build consisted of Sands of Time, Warlock Staff if you can stack, or Rod of Tahuti if you can't, Divine Ruin or some other flat 10 item, Soul Reaver, Obsidian Shard, and Staff of Mirrodin. The build that took Pegon and the Jade Dragons to win in the recent Masters Tournament, so you can guarantee it's a good one. But Smite is always changing with regular patches, new gods, new items and such. So if we take a look at what types of stats and passives we need, you might be able to create a build that stands the test of time. You're definitely going to need some power for scaling, as your main priority is going to be dealing damage, and you're going to want penetration against squishy targets and percent penetration, because your job is to kind of poke everyone down until you can create an opportunity to go in for the kill. For cooldown reduction, we're going to want some, but don't force the 40% maximum. 10, 20 or 30% is perfectly fine. You're going to want a fair amount so you can do some poke, but you don't want to lose out on these other stats for cooldown reduction. If you need some sustain, you can definitely pick up some lifesteal items. Currently, Soul Gem is a great item on Yu Huang, so it's a good option there. As far as big late game luxury items go, Soul Reaver, Tahuti, Warlock Staff, Staff of Mirrodin, Yu Huang is a greedy mage. The more expensive items you can afford to find the space to buy, the better. Just be careful you don't fall off. Your team will need to carry you while you're weak and gaining these much bigger items. And last but not least, anti-heal is always a maybe, depending on what the team has. Currently, the build is using Divine Ruin, so you've got anti-heal baked into that build already. So to wrap up the build, you want a lot of power, penetration so you can destroy any god that stands in your range, and as many luxury items as you can afford to buy without throwing the game for you and your team. The most important thing to know once you have the absolute basics of a god down is their bread and butter. What is their go-to combo that makes them good? What are they supposed to spend most of their time doing as a character in this game? For Yu Huang, there is a combo that you will use 99% of the time, and then a skill you need to master. Your bread and butter combo is the 2-1 poke combo. Charge your second ability for half a second, only as long as you need to, and then fire it at an unsuspecting enemy, slowing them and then rooting them, making your almost impossible to land first ability a sure thing. If you have the time, however, fully charge your second ability, so you'll have 6 stacks of Dao and become attuned when you fire it. Then, after you've rooted an enemy with your second ability, hit them with your first ability, and that'll also get that magic protection shred that you gain from being attuned, ready for you and your team to follow up and commit to the kill. And speaking of committing for the kill, Yu Huang's ultimate is a hard thing to master, but when you have, you will become unstoppable. The thing to remember about this is that it is a CC ability first, and the damage it deals is secondary, although very good. Try to practice lining this up so you will pull enemies into the clutches of your team. If you just fire it straight on, it's easier to hit, yes, and you'll almost guarantee the damage, but you'll be pushing the enemy away to safety, at least normally. Instead, try to drag them at awkward angles away from their team. Remember that if you are struggling to hit, you can also get yourself attuned with 6 or more Dao to make the dragons wider and make this task much easier for yourself. I do hope you love Yu Huang, but if you don't, we have an entire playlist of quick start guides that we're constantly adding more to, so maybe you'll find your next main in there.